Hi, this is Vicki with Crafting for Fun. I'm here today to share another card project with you. This is actually a project that was inspired by something that I saw on Pinterest, but I didn't have the exact stamps that they used on that card, so I went through my own stash and found supplies that I already owned to make this card. I used a stamped image from the Ornament Keepsake stamp set, which is no longer available, and the framelits to cut that out, but you could easily substitute any Christmas shaped punch, or any Christmas shaped stamp, and you could cut it out by hand or use coordinating framelits or dies if they were available. So I will show you how I made this card, and then you can modify it to be your own. So let me show you what you'll need. I began by using a piece of crumb cake cardstock, which is just a craft color that is 8.5 by 5.5, and it's been scored at 4.5 inches right in the center. I used a piece of red color cardstock. This piece measures 4.25 by 5.5. I needed a piece of vanilla cardstock to create a layer for my card, and I cut this piece 5 1/8 by 3 7/8 inches. But if you are uncomfortable cutting that precisely, you could cut a standard 5 1/4 by 4 inch layer. Again, my layer is 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. I have a piece of music note paper here. I had one piece of music note paper in a paper stack that I found, and I cut it to 3 inches by 4 inches, which means if I decide to mass produce this card, I can make 16 of these cards using just one single 12 by 12 sheet of this music note paper. And then I have approximately 2.5 by 2.5 inch square of cardstock just to stamp an image on. In addition, I need 2 pieces of ribbon. I have one piece of 1 1/4 inch ribbon here that measures 8 inches long, and then I have another piece of the same ribbon that's 4 1/4 inches or 4.5 inches long. So 4.5 and 8 inches of ribbon. I have some ink for my stamped image. I chose to use a green color. I'm using Wild Wasabi. And then, as I said, I'm using the Ornament Keepsake stamp set, which is unfortunately no longer available, but I did already own that, so I decided to utilize it. And you will definitely need a set of nesting dies. I'm using Spellbinder Nestability's Label 17, but you could use any nesting dies. The Sizzix dies, the Stampin' Up dies, the Spellbinders dies, they're all great choices. Just any shape that you like that works with the papers and style of card that you're making. In addition to that, you'll need some adhesives, and you'll definitely need a Big Shot machine. So let me get set up and I'll show you how we're going to assemble this card. Today I'm going to begin by showing you how I created the different pieces that you'll need for this card. I took my Labels 17 Spellbinder dies, and I took the second largest and third largest dies. So not the largest, but the next one down and the one down from it. And I want to use those to create a frame. So what I did was I laid a piece of red cardstock on top of a clear acrylic cutting pad that goes with my die cutting, my Sizzix Big Shot machine. And I took my largest die and laid it down. And then I took the next die and laid it down, and I positioned it very carefully so that they're nested exactly inside of each other like I want. And you can use a magnetic platform if that helps you to hold your pieces in place, or you can use Post-it note. But when you've moved your pieces and they're exactly where you want them, like that, then you would put another clear acrylic plate on top and run it through your Big Shot machine. And I'll show you what comes out. You'll come out with something that looks like this. So this outside portion we don't need. We won't need that piece. I'm going to set it aside. Now we have 2 other pieces. The inside portion we will not be using for this card, but that would be a great piece to save for another card. But what we do need is this frame. So I'm going to set my frame aside and cut my other pieces. So next I took my music paper, my Jingle Bell paper, and I laid it down, and I took the smaller of the 2 dies that I just used. So I used the second and third dies from the Spellbinder set. I'm going to use the third one down, so not the largest, not the next one, but the third one down, and I'm going to cut out my Jingle Bell piece. So I would just run that through my Big Shot machine, and what I would be left with would be this piece. So just a shaped piece with my music notes on it. So I have those pieces there. Now I need to prepare my ornament. So what I did was I mounted my ornament stamp on a wood block, and I used some green ink, and I just stamped my image, and I came up with something that looks like this. Now my particular set came with, or actually you could order coordinating framelits. So I purchased the framelits that go with this. So what I would do is simply lay my stamped image on my clear acrylic cutting pad, put my die on top, my framelit die on top, put another clear acrylic pad on top of that, and run it through my Sizzix Big Shot machine. And I would have a stamped and cut out image that I could use on my card. So I have all of my pieces ready to go, and I just need to assemble my card. So let me get those things set up, and I'll show you how we're actually going to go about assembling the card. Okay, I'm ready to assemble my card, so I'm going to take my base card that has already been scored, and I'm going to fold it in half and burnish along the crease with a bone folder to get a nice smooth crease. And I'm going to take the white, or the cream colored layer that I cut, the 5 1/8 by 3 7/8, and I'm going to put adhesive on the back of that and apply it to the front of my card, leaving an even amount of border all the way around. This 5 1/8 by 3 7/8 leaves a slightly wider border than a standard card, so that's why I've chosen to use that. So the next thing I need to do is actually apply my frame. So I'm going to take my frame, turn it over on the back side, and I actually use foam dimensional tape. So I have some here. These are actually a brand that I purchased at my local Joann's store, and I cut them down to whatever size I need. So I'm actually just cutting them into tinier pieces, and I'm going to take little pieces and I'm going to put all around the edge. I put kind of one at each corner and then a couple along the sides, just so I don't have any saggy places when I actually apply it to my project. And you can cut these down to even smaller pieces if you need to. So once I have the adhesive on the back of the, oh, that's a little bit large. So I can cut very narrow pieces from this. Is why I really like these for this purpose. And you do want to pop it up a little bit because you're going to actually set the music paper inside of the frame, and it's going to give it a little more dimension. So now I'm cutting just some little squares to go at the top and bottom. There we go. Okay, so I'm ready to remove the liners from those. Now on my sample card, I did not put a sentiment on the outside of the card, but I certainly could go back and either add a sentiment or put one on the inside. It was just my preference. I thought that it had enough detail on the outside for my liking. I'm almost finished peeling all these little liners off. There we go. Now I'm just going to center my frame up here. When I get it where I want it, I'm just going to give it a good press. And now I'm ready to put my music paper in place. So I'm going to turn it over on the back side and just put some tape adhesive. I don't want to use dimensional adhesive on this. And I'm actually just going to fit it inside of the frame. Give it a good press. And the camera probably does not show, but the frame is the edge of the frame is actually raised and the music paper is recessed. So now I'm ready to work with my ribbon. What I did was I took my ribbon, and you may know that I'm a big fan of score tape, so I put some score tape on the end of the ribbon. And this is the 8-inch piece of ribbon. I have two pieces. I have a shorter piece and a longer piece. The 8-inch piece of ribbon, I put adhesive on the end, and I'm actually going to make a big loop, and I put some on the other end as well. and I'm just going to make a loop, and I'm going to overlap the ends of this by maybe somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 of an inch. So I basically have a big closed loop, and if you don't like the way you matched your edges, you can pull it apart. Fabric is pretty forgiving. There we go. So I have a big closed loop there, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to actually be stacking that on top of this piece. So I'm going to take, I put a little bit of adhesive score tape again in the center of my 4.5 inch piece, and I put it in the center on the front and on the back. And I'm going to take this loop and I'm going to put the seam in the back, in the center of the back, and I'm going to, and I find this easiest if I just lay it down. I'm going to actually stack it up and make a nice sandwich. So what you have now is a loop that's attached to a straight piece. And then I just take my stapler and I go right back in the center. And you may notice I have score tape on the back. I'm not going to even worry about that. 1, 2, maybe 3 staples. Again, that's going to be covered up, so it really doesn't matter. I'm using a Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher, which has very small staples, but a standard stapler works just great. Now I'm going to go back and remove those liners. I stapled through it, and that may make it a little bit harder to peel the liner off, but that was not good planning on my place, or I didn't plan my placement very well when I put it there. I'm not even going to worry about it. I have another piece of score tape there next to it, and if that happens to you, it will all be covered up, so don't worry. Just grab another piece and cover it up. There we go. So I have my score tape on there, and I'm going to take the whole, well, before I do that, before I apply it there, I want to do one more thing. I want to flag the, or fishtail the ends of these straight pieces. So I'm going to cut in maybe, about 1/3 of an inch. I'm going to cut to the center, and from the corner to the center. That will fishtail that end. I'm going to go to the opposite side, and I'm going to do the same thing. About 1/3 of an inch in. Go from the corner to the center, and the corner to the center. Get rid of all my debris there. I'm going to take my piece that has adhesive on the back, and I'm going to go ahead and stick it down right in the center. There we go. So that should be nice and secured. Oops, I have some tape on my finger. Nice and secured to my card with some ugly staples right in the center. And it should look like that from the side when you look at it. So now I'm ready to bring my ornament back. I have my ornament here. I want to add adhesive to the top and the bottom, so I'm going to use foam dots again, or the same dimensional adhesive that I was using before, and I have some pieces that are already cut small, and I'm going to add a piece to the bottom, just a tiny piece to the bottom, and I'm going to add a tiny piece to the top, and this will raise it up so that it is above the ribbon, but also it will secure it very tightly to my card front. And I'm just going to center it right over those staples and press my foam dimensionals down. Puff up my loops. And there you go. Whoops. There you go. The front of the card is finished. So you can see this is a very easy card to assemble once you create all of the pieces. So create a focal image, whatever image that may be that you choose. Decide on a background paper. I used music, but you may choose something else. Make your ribbon embellishment and create your frame, and then assemble your card. I hope you enjoyed today's project. If you have any questions, please email me at craftingforfun@gmail.com or check out my blog craftingforfun.blogspot.com.